Hello, you amazing people. You're listening to the Marketing and Coffee Podcast, the show that brings you the latest in marketing, especially in the UAE market, with your host, Lijo Etup.
Welcome, Karthik Bhatt. Retail, travel, clothing, bank, fashion, healthcare, adventure, sports retail, there's nothing that seems you have not done in this career. So welcome to the podcast, Karthik. It's amazing to have you on this podcast.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to spend a Saturday evening with you, trying to discuss about some of the changes. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me around.
I'm sure there is a lot of learning that will come for the listeners. Quick one. Right now, you have doing a lot of webinars on omnichannel, and there is a lot of omnichannel as a buzzword. And I feel that omnichannel it's a new and upcoming thing. And we were discussing how it's and it's not either or. But I'm looking at from a mindset perspective for a retailer or for e-commerce. What's the biggest shift that is required in terms of mindset when you think omnichannel?
So there are multiple things, Lijo. For a typical conventional retail business, it's always been about product. You have the product on the shelf, and if you are an established brand, people are going to make a beeline outside your door. But the moment you get into an omnichannel ecosystem, you move away from only being a product leader to being an experience leader, to being a journey leader, to being a overall 360 shopping ecosystem leader. You need to ensure, and one of the biggest challenges that people face is they believe that, okay, once somebody is shopped online, he's going to get the product delivered in 2 days, 3 days. While what the customer is typically looking at is, and the way he compares it in his mind is, it takes me 6 hours to go to a mall or 4 hours to go to a mall. Is this guy better as an omnichannel retailer? Can he deliver the products to me in 4 to 5 hours? Can I get a better deal? Can I get a better convenience? So it's about the convenience and the experience along with the product that builds the entire ecosystem. And that is a mindset shift. It's not about a functionality shift. I might have the most evolved web ecosystem or a web journey with a single click functionality. But if I don't have all my ducks in place, which means my product availability on the platform, my sync on the platform, and my last mile connectivity built around it to ensure a seamless experience supported by a very strong service functionality, I might not be able to move there. So what we thought of as non-core in our physical retail business suddenly becomes the core of omnichannel or a integrated ecosystem, what we call as a convergent ecosystem. And that is a mindset shift. That is a cultural shift that a lot of retailers are struggling, and a lot of businesses that are nimble-footed and agile are succeeding at coping up with.
One of the biggest thing of retail, which I feel is very difficult to replicate online, is that the fact that the sale is very experiential. There's human contact. There is a lot of questions that's answered at that point of time. The human interaction plays a huge role. Do you think that omnichannel and with the shift that happening a little bit more online, as you said, does that experience get diluted? Can it ever be replicated online?
So the answer to that, Lijo, is going to be every retailer might not be able to, but retailers who have invested not only physically in terms of monetary value or dollar investment, but who are invested in the retail journey necessarily find themselves getting the experiential ecosystem built. So for example, I have to give you an example of Smithsonian Vault. Now, Smithsonian Vault earlier in the early 2000s and first half of 2010 to 2014, invested heavily on value-added services and were the pioneers of what we call as valet services. Fashion business was struggling with people trying to do trials and people not able to figure out the right color feel. So Smithsonian Vault, for its regular customers, built what we call as the valet services, which is now being replicated by a lot of retailers, is as a regular shopper, select 10 products, 15 products. I'm not going to bill it to you. I'll have a valet bring those products back to you in your neighborhood, back to your doorstep. You may choose whichever you would like to pick up from that, and you may return the rest back to me. That was one element of a valet service. The other element of the valet service, which unfortunately got abused to a very large extent in certain part of the world, is what Venti did, or even Eaton's did as a shirt retailer many years ago, is what we call as try and buy. you have a luxury of trying the products and buying and choosing what you like to and return if you do not like. Now that experience was a very far-fetched experience in terms of getting a touch and feel of the product. But with technology, with virtual assistant, with assisted shopping, with live chats and visual chats available, experiencing a product is not as difficult as it can be. With advances in technology that IKEA has made, or advances in virtual resonation, the virtual shopping has been done by businesses like Target and ASOS. I think it is, I wouldn't say it's 100% replicated, but it is getting as close as possible in terms of experiencing, feeling, and relating with the product. So, to give you an answer, businesses that have invested themselves in the journey are able to get that experiential feel right. Businesses which are still continuing to be purely on a marketplace or purely a trading platform would find it a little difficult to get there.
There is a cost also associated with delivering this kind of experience online. Does it
100%.
make sense to, even, for example, if you send 10 shirts for somebody to try on, that entire cost of logistics of taking those 10 shirts, bringing 8 back or 7 back, does it make sense for a brand to even consider this?
It depends on the geography, the ecosystem, and the shoppers that you'd want to do. The moment you start segregating, you might not be able to, which is one element that the digital business allows you to do far better than any other business, is to segregate your shoppers into your most valuable, your second tier, and your below zero shoppers basis your engagement with them. And your top 5 to 10% of your shoppers that contribute 40-50% of your business, which is your most valuable shoppers, you are in a position to differentiate an experience through the wheels. For example, in a business like ours, for example, Adventure HQ, to give you a perspective, I have shoppers who buy a 30, 35,000, 40,000 dirham bike. Now, all the way from seeing the bike at their doorstep, to getting a feel, to take a trial of that bike, to get it serviced, to get a service reminder, to get even an accessory through a solution selling approach made available at a doorstep, builds an entire experiential ecosystem. And experiential ecosystem doesn't necessarily only associate with the product being touched and felt. It's also about the entire shopping journey. Can I make that entire journey faster? Can I introduce a lightning delivery as a value added service to make sure that you order a product before 4 o'clock and it is delivered to you before 6 in the evening or 7 in the evening in certain parts? Can I make sure that my returns work seamless for you? Can I make sure that if you are if you are a regular customer, I have a concierge available that enables you to go through an assisted shopping? Can I offer you a solution selling approach, which is through an iterative experience or intuitive experience on the website, which means the moment you pick up a mother SKU, the child SKU that you need to identify and associate becomes a part of it. So when you plug all these elements together, you would start building an experiential journey, which at times is even far better felt than what you do in the store. Because at the end of the day in the store, it's about the human interactions. And human interactions, while they have been the backbone of our ecosystem or backbone of the shopping journey, a technologically assisted interaction or a technology platform ensures standardization of that experience throughout, compared to what a human experience would do. So again, to give you an answer, technology, right interactions, right ecosystems can build a far seamless experience. But the only caveat is the experiential ecosystem is not supposed to be a function of the experience division only. It has to become a culture of the organization. Every element needs to be experience driven, from your UX to your web journey, through your checkouts, through your last mile, through your product divisions, through your assisted services. All of it has to build into one large experience. And if that is successfully done, I think that experience on the web can be equal or even better than the physical retail.
That brings me to the next one, because there's so many touch points through this journey, which is online and physical, right from the consumer seeing the product and finally getting converted. One of the biggest challenges is to attribute it to the right place. Where did the conversion happen? So what are the tools and measurements that one can use for measuring the efficiency of the omnichannel? Because it becomes a huge challenge for me to know, where do I attribute the sale to, as the consumer touch points has increased manifold with this omnichannel approach.
So again, I would go back to the fundamentals on retail. It is ultimately going to be an acquisition, retention, growth journey. The journey is more or less the same. And the sale process is necessarily what happens in a physical store. Sale is equal to footfall into conversion into average ticket value. And that's exactly the way it happens even on an omni-channel. The only differentiation is the source and the trigger of conversion varies necessarily. And hence, one needs to have a very clear walkway through the acquisition funnel, which means getting a Google Analytics or getting any analytic, which is the driver, the acquisition funnel tapped, synced with your email campaign, synced with your affiliate, synced well with your organic coming in through. So you have a very clear idea of where the traffic is coming in. If you as a retailer are using technologies which go into location mapping or which would go into a slightly more light speed kind of a technology, which allows you to plug your physical traffic also coming into the store and the online traffic and the attribution around which one led to which one through either a voucher or through a promo code or through a physical beacon as well, you would be able to demarcate where did the shopper come from. More importantly, tagging the shopper all along the journey and trying to identify at through either a Google Analytics platform or through any other as to what is the trigger that converts him from being a visitor onto the platform through either a heat map sensitivity or through a shopper understanding or a shopper funnel would give you an idea as to how do you look at his journey and how do you improve. A typical attribution exercise is what we would be rather referring to. More importantly, is it is not very difficult, I would say, in terms of comparative terms, to map the traffic and to map the conversion. But what is very important is the abandoned cart percentages on the business and how does a web journey and assisted shopping or service functionalities convert. And that is where the difference comes in a business. Typically from a zero point 0.6 to a 1.2, any conversion on a platform is either a functionality of services or a functionality of your web journey optimization. And hence, getting the right filters placed there to track is going to be absolutely critical. And then once you've done this, you need to start getting into measuring his lifetime, which is typically getting into understanding his putting in any CRM network on the place to understand his recency, frequency, monetary value of shopping. What are the triggers and what are the points at which you can bring the shopper back onto your platform to ensure that his average ticket value would be optimized. You need to get into understanding the threshold at which the solution sales works at him. What are the traction points or what are the product categories that through a very fair market basket or a recommendation engine like an a priori would help you understand that what products that are triggering multiple purchases and what products are inhibiting multiple purchases for a particular shopper, and then you club it into the shopper set basis the segment of shopper that he belongs to would help you get the right set of attributes. But to put it to, there is no simple answer to this. There's no one point answer to this. Depending on what functionality of the omnichannel are you trying to optimize, you would need to make sure that your acquisition, retention, growth, your shopper conversion ticket value is maximized. And then you come into your unit matrix association at a fulfillment level to try and figure out what is my cost of acquiring this customer, what is my cost of servicing this customer, what is my cost of fulfilling this customer, and is this guy really profitable to me? If yes, at what number of transactions? More often than not, in the Middle East, at least, with the kind of acquisition cost that we are paying, necessarily by the time the third or the fourth transaction happens with a shopper is when he becomes profitable. And that is, I might attribute it to a lot of larger retailers having millions of dollars of cash reserves available to take the Google algorithm to a level where bidding and buying for a shopper becomes prohibitively expensive. So, in a nutshell, every functionality needs to be measured in its own manner to get an efficiency of the entire platform. But if there were to be one matrix that you would use, you need to see the repeats as to what is the percentage of repeats and what is the recency frequency that you're getting for the shopper in your business.
Yeah, so that interestingly, so recency frequency monitoring used to be the old mail order mantra, and clearly that has got its own value in the e-commerce system. So can that be used as one of the big benchmarks of a omnichannel strategy or e-commerce strategy where the recency frequency monetary value is the plan to take forward?
100%. Ideally, so it's going to be an old wine in a new bottle. what we as an old school retailer, I wouldn't still call an old school retailer, but we as a 2000s retailer, or I as a 2000 retailer would say is, I measure the success of my business by retention. Today, the e-commerce business measures the success by repeats. Primarily, to give you a mathematical perspective, let's say a typical online grocery retailer or an online fashion retailer has an average ticket value of, let's say, 130, 140 dirhams at a 40-50% margin. Even if I were to give him a benefit of a doubt at a 50% margin, which is going to be a rare case, he's going to make 50-60 dirhams on that transaction. With the kind of algorithms that are at play, his average cost of acquisition is going to be anywhere between $10 to $12, which is 36 to 37 dirhams, 40 dirhams. On a 50-55 dirham margin, a 40 dirham acquisition and 8 to 12 to 15 dirham fulfillment cost itself is going to eat into the margin. So he's going to be at least negative 40, negative 50 on a shopper. He will never be able to break even on the shopper till the time the guy comes back the third time. So it is not only important to measure the success through the RFM, but also to measure the success through the acquisition cost. How are we able to continuously optimize our acquisition cost and our fulfillment cost? Because with especially post-pandemic, ticket values are under tremendous pressure. Recency frequency is a function of available dollars with me. So are we able to keep our acquisition costs low? Are we able to bring in low cost funnels into the play? How is my affiliate and my organic network working? How are my alliances working? And how is my CRM working in order to make sure, or do I have a referral that brings in new organic but direct shoppers into the business through a referral route where my cost of acquiring that shopper is sometimes 1/5 or 1/6 of my typical cost of buying the shopper? Also, do I continuously need to subsidize my purchases? Because it's a function of how do I want to grow the business. If I'm a retailer that is going omni-channel, I would grow it differently. But if I'm a marketplace player, I would want to ensure that I have very limited expenses on any other functionality. So all I do is keep buying sales off the market, keep building consumer bases by spending exorbitantly on digital as well as on discounting the products through vouchers and e-coupons. So depending on where I am, my acquisition strategy would change. But again, to give you a perspective, RFM in a new mantra, which is typically the repeats and the cost of retention, is one of the key matrices that we look at in terms of success of the entire ecosystem.
Are there any industries where the first acquisition cost, I think the acquisition cost ratio to lifetime value has gone up? Like earlier, maybe you go to lifetime value, with the second transaction, you build the value. Do you see this trend happening where the number of transactions that is required to break even with the consumers growing up, considering there's a huge competition out there in the online space? Or this 3 to 4 is something that's been constant for a period of time?
No, so it wasn't 3 to 4 few months or few quarters ago. It used to be second, but now an average cost of buying a shopper is moved from anywhere between, especially in certain industries that I associate with, and I have a little bit of an NDA, so I can't give you a name, but certain industries where I'm associated with, from $9 acquisition costs moved all the way up to $16, $17, $18, primarily because of excessive bidding and excessive competition, everybody trying to hunt the same shopper down through different routes. And more importantly, with competition building around resources, the indirect cost of acquiring that shopper, which goes into the discounting or which goes into the entry level favors that need to be given, plus the resource cost of building that acquisition funnel has gone up significantly high. So a real actual cost of 18 translates into a real cost of anything between $24 to $26 a shopper, which can become prohibitive, especially if you are into the supermarket, fashion, general merchandise, or a specialty retail business, unless you are in the fragrance, lifestyle, and luxury space. But then fragrance, lifestyle, luxury, considering the campaign management cost itself is so high that it would still require the second or third purchase. But otherwise, in the general merchandise space, it's bloodshed.
And also the fact that since the acquisition is becoming more and more difficult, there's deep discounting to acquire the first customer. And that, I think,
absolutely,
that's a double whammy into the getting the lifetime value out of the customer.
Also, what it does is today the customer has far too many options, so he understands where is he getting an introductory discount. So for example, I would give you my perspective. Off late, I have been shopping my groceries online. I was shopping on InstaShop. InstaShop seems to be convenient for me to get my groceries delivered. Suddenly, one day, an ad popped in saying that noon you get 25 dirhams off and you don't get any discounts. And then somebody said you get a pack of 6 bottles of water at 4.5 dirhams. I'm surprised how does he manage to sell 6 bottles at 4.5 dirham, because the distributor itself sells it at 6.5, 7 dirhams. So somebody in the funnel is bleeding. 25 dirhams on a grocery purchase of 100, or even 25 dirhams on a grocery purchase of 25, is it necessarily means that either no one's subsidizing it, or somebody in the funnel is bleeding profusely. Now, topping this up with the kind of cost that one is looking at, going back to your old answer and clubbing both of them, it's going to take a supermarket retailer at least 8 to 9 visits for him to break even, or to even come to a sense of operational break even. I wouldn't look at an organizational break even. A transactional break even on the shopper itself is going to be difficult. So at the moment, it's about, and God forbid, if the stickiness is not built, why do people discount so much? They don't discount so much to bring the shopper to the portal only. They try and discount so much to try and make sure that there's a stickiness built with the format. So let's say if I'm visiting xyz.com, the xyz.com gives me a 25 dirham or a 50 dirham discount for me to come and try the platform. And if that platform at that time either doesn't showcase the merchandise that I've had, or or I want, or showcase the experience that I want, or if everything goes right but the fulfillment partner screws up on the entire delivery, then unfortunately the $18 that they spent on acquiring me through the digital network, the 30, 40, 50 dirhams that they spent on discounting has completely gone waste, because I would be going out in the market looking for a second supplier or a third supplier of the same product. So along with my acquisition rate, my NPS is something that I would need to continuously monitor. My net promoter score, what is my dragger versus what is my lifter, continuously telling me.
Yeah, because another thing that is happening, especially in a commodity category, right, where there is an apple from across, like a Carrefour or a Lulu or for a Noon, all from this thing, it is becoming even more difficult for retailers to retain the customer, because here these people are bargain hunting, and it's in the convenience. You don't have to go anywhere, just switch between the apps or the websites. So the retention is becoming even more difficult, especially in categories like groceries.
So I'll give you a very interesting perspective. I was talking to somebody very senior at one of the largest grocery retailers in the region. Again, I might not be at a luxury to give you the names, but he said that I face a similar challenge of bargain hunting shoppers. So what I do is I boost my ticket value and I let them gain the bargain. So let's say you've come to buy 1 bottle of water for me, you get it at the same price. But if you buy a pack of 12, I'll give you a deal. You want to buy 1 kg of rice with me, I'll give it to you at most of the same price that everybody else. But you buy a pack of 10, a 10 kg rice, I'll give you a better deal. You buy 100 dirhams, which is what everybody buys online in the food space, you buy it at the same price. But the moment you go to a 300, 400, 500, you start seeing value adds. It is a win game for everybody, because what he does by doing this is he beats the clutter. He takes the shopper to an elevated average ticket value, by which he overcomes the acquisition cost and the fulfillment cost barrier. By moving the shopper up, he can even make him affordable after giving him a discount. And the shopper wins, because any which ways, all that you're trying to do is you are increase your share of spends at a particular retailer by bringing him there and staying him or keeping him associated with you. But by doing something like this, what you're trying to do is reduce his spend somewhere else, optimize his spends in your platform, and optimize your expenses, and still end up giving him discounts as per his expectations. So it seems to be a win-win formula, and I don't know how would it pan out in the next 6 months, but prima facie to me it looks like a good strategy, and
Yeah.
I would second it.
Yeah. So as long as once you get the customer in, make sure that the transaction value is enough to offset as much of the acquisition cost as possible.
Which is what we do even in physical retail, if you know, Lijo. Off late, retailers have stopped giving discounts like 25% off, 50% off, 70% off. No, because it's the same set of customers who are coming. It's that same $200 shop buyer, $200 shirt buyer who comes and buys 2 shirts and goes, whether he gets it at $100 each or $50 each. Until unless he moves to the third and the fourth shirt, I'm losing money on him. So I would rather make him shop for 1,000 dirhams and give him 250 dirhams off, rather than giving him his 25 dirhams off on a 100 dirham shirt.
So
It's the same logic. It's just packed differently.
On that point of how retail and online behavior is, so today a lot of the retailers are on the crossroads. Should they be looking at a retail first strategy, or should they be looking at an online first strategy, or a combination of both? So have we reached that inflection point in consumer behavior where retailers can think of a retail first strategy, or do you think still there's a long way to go?
I think depending on the type of business that you are in and the nature of and the category that you are in, you would want to change your priorities. But I am particularly not very convinced of an online retailer going offline. That is not the way the industry is likely to move in near future, and that would mean making a mess of the entire ecosystem. But I would be very happy to see a new retailer going into the market with a complete end-to-end omnichannel strategy, because that makes the business far more viable rather than having a online first and then getting into an offline strategy, or a retail first and then getting into an online strategy. No, it would, if you are a new player in the business, you would try and make a purely omnichannel strategy where your inventory, your dark store versus bright stores, your fulfillment and your warehousing logics, your round robin merchandise availability, and more importantly, your product experience all the way through your curbside pickups to your return journeys to your trials. All of it can be integrated if you have an omnichannel ecosystem working. So if I were to guide and if I were to help a new retailer get into the business in a particular geography, I would recommend omnichannel with a very strong focus on direct to consumer approach.
So on that
but note, irrespective of where you're going, the boundaries have moved, Lijo, from whether you are an online retailer or you are an offline retailer. That to me is what we call as omnichannel 1.0. Omnichannel 2.0 is already taken into assumption that these two ecosystems exist, and it has gone into a completely different tangent, which is about convergence of product, which is the physical online or physical retail, services, which is the value added services, which is the experiential part of it, and the community. So it is a convergence of all these three elements that make the entire shopping possible, which means product and service, or product and online, offline, services, which is your fulfillment, VAS, etc., and your entire community shopping or the engagement within the community that comes together to make this ecosystem work well. So that is what we see as something evolving. And any retailer that gets into business, or any retailer that has ambitions of getting into this space, would necessarily look at building a conversion strategy very soon, sooner than later.
So basically coexistence of both. I guess there is no first, as long as and the way the consumers are behaving, and it's so dynamic, and never before has the market been as challenged today as to have an understanding on the changing consumer behavior, on the macro behavior, because consumers changing almost on a weekly basis of the behavior, and to have that on that pulse to know that where they're moving is omnichannel 2.0. It's changing.
Yeah. It is changing in terms of purchases. It is changing in terms of nodes of interest. What I see is the strengths that each one of them adds. So, for example, if I were to see a particular retailer online, unless I know the pedigree of the retailer, I might be a little scared to trust. But once I know that this guy has so many stores, and this guy has such a huge presence, or this guy has a footprint around, and I've heard, I would start believing in the experience, and I would be willing to try. Or if I have heard of a large retailer going into the online space, I would say, okay, this guy's taken the online edge. Now it's the convenience that matters to me. Unless I've had the luxury of being an online retailer only, like an Amazon, which has, after many years of pumping billions, built a niche for itself, I would look at A plus B and neither A or B logic.
Thanks a lot, Karthik. It's been amazing having you on this podcast. There's a lot of learning, and I think people who are looking at retail first, or have a little more clear, or online first and omnichannel, has got a lot of clear understanding of where to go about. I'm sure you can help them. And is LinkedIn the best way to reach you? or is there any other way they can reach?
LinkedIn's the best way to reach me. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, I would be talking about convergence on my platform on LinkedIn as well as through my webinars. And there are a lot of other classroom sessions that I'm going to do as the winter begins. So, yeah, I think anybody who needs to reach out can feel free to. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Lijo. It's always a pleasure to discuss about changing trends and evolving business practices. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.